where you meet people who make life better, our clients and friends. My name is Pramod Sharma, and our guest today is Dave Ramsumair, who is called a Duke, probably among other things. I met Dave, and that's him in the background. I met Dave recently through the Global Change Initiative, which he organized. And I don't know how he did it, and I should probably ask him questions about this, but maybe not in this interview. He had sponsors or supporters including the United Nations and Reddit, and he had performers including the cast of Rent and Avenue Q Puppets, and he had speakers including Carol Roberts and David Peck, who have already been on this series. We've got a lot to talk about, but we'll be focusing on one topic in particular. And that topic is making connections that last. Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and you are having tea. Good. For the benefit of viewers, we really do have tea at Taxevity. It's true. Now, when you go to a networking event, do you have a process that you use to follow up with people, or?
Well, I think before we have a process to follow up with them, I think we have to meet them first, right?
Okay.
So I would say what I do when in a social environment or a social setting like a networking event or a party or a gala, anything like that, is first I pretty much pre-screen. I pre-screen the audience. I see individuals that are in the same line of work as myself or others that I know, so that when you connect with somebody, there is a reason or a purpose for it. The thing that I hate most about social events or networking events is when people go out solely for the purpose of meeting everyone in the room.
Okay.
Not building any sort of meaningful connections or contacts with them. I truly do believe in meeting 3 people at an event that are going to make a difference in your lives in your life or the lives of others.
Okay, you said you pre-screen. Is that prior to going to the event or at the event itself?
Actually, sometimes a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
So at the event, most of the time you would go with somebody,
okay,
an associate of yours or a colleague, and they may know someone who's useful or beneficial to your business or a business of your friends or somebody else that you may know.
Mm-hmm.
Or going to an event solo, such as a gala being held at the museum, you sort of know who's going to be there. They publish the lists of the attendees and the guests that will be in attendance. And sometimes if you're really interested in meeting someone, I like the idea of doing some research ahead of time on that individual, that person, their position.
Okay, so you'll do that level of preparation.
Yeah, so when you go into the room, you know exactly who you're talking to. You know what points to talk about. You know something that strikes a chord with that individual, and that will keep the conversation going.
Okay, and your goal is to talk in particular to 3 people. Well, you'll talk to more, but you're
depending. It of course depends on the venue and how many people are there and what the event is. I think 3 is a good starting point.
Okay, and then you've met these people, and then what do you do afterwards once you've left the event?
Okay.
This is the process question.
This is the process question. So I believe in a very personal approach to connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we might all be business persons, whatever it is, but we're all human, and we all like that idea of being treated as such, not just as a corporate machine. So where I would go from there is everybody would then receive a personal phone call, an email, or some sort of communication as such. I don't send out mass emails saying, thank you, it was great to meet you, and hope that they don't catch on to it.
Okay.
I like to send a very personalized email. Usually what I do on the back of business cards or postcards or something is I write something from the conversation that I remember that person from. So in the event of meeting you at an event and you would tell me this is what you do, I would write some notes on the back of the card so that in the email that I send you or in the phone call that I make the next day to thank you for your time in talking to me at the event, I would then bring up those points.
Okay, now when you write on the back of the card, do you do that just after talking to the person? Do you do it when you go home later?
It all depends.
Okay.
Sometimes if it's something that I know I might forget, I'd excuse myself to the restroom once the conversation is done and jot everything down. Or in the taxi on the way home or on the train or however it is.
Okay, and
But
then
I try to do it as fresh as I can.
okay, so you've met them at the event and you've decided you'll follow up with selected people. When do you follow up? Is it the next day? Is it a week later? Is there some fixed time frame?
What I do is I try to get to them as soon as possible. So send them a message the following morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, send them a message the following morning. If for some reason I can't, it will be the very next day. So
Okay.
the very next day following that,
Right,
the
right.
morning after. Yeah, the reason why I do that is so that you can sort of plant the seed. When you plant the seed, the day that you meet them,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just leave it. You have to water it,
Okay.
and that's the water.
Oh, interesting. Because what I'll sometimes do is there's certain people I want to follow up with also, but I'll wait a day or two to see whether they follow up with me in like in the meantime.
Save that for a date.
I'm married.
That's
That wouldn't work.
exactly. That I find is more of a date tactic. You sort of let the guy or girl message you first.
Okay, so there's no harm in being proactive and following up
Exactly.
with them.
And what I really like is the idea of a phone call over an email. An email
Okay.
is like a last resort for me. A phone call, everybody likes that human approach, you know? It's
Mhm.
nice to call somebody and say, "Thank you for engaging in conversation. Just to let you know, I will be sending you an email that to book a meeting request or that I'd love to meet and discuss something with you. Look forward to it."
Okay, so you've had this phone call, say, the next day or the day after that.
Yeah.
And then what happens next?
So that's where I send the third, which would be the email. So
Oh, I see. Okay.
call them right away.
Mm-hmm.
Thank them first for what they've said or spending time with you. After that is when you go in for your ask.
Okay.
Yeah, so always, I think humans intrinsically like to be thanked. It makes them feel like they've done something good
Sure.
or that they've benefited you in some way. So it's always good to say thank you. That's when you get some time. That's when you get time on their calendar,
Okay.
when you thank them,
Mm-hmm.
because then they want to see you. Whereas opposed to you calling them saying, what? What else would you say if you don't thank them?
Right, because otherwise it comes across as a pitch.
We met at the event. I want to talk to you about
Whatever I sell.
my product or service.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So I think it's best to thank them in the phone call, mention that you will send them an email to book a meeting request with them because you'd love to have coffee and hear more about what they had to say about whatever it was you were talking about.
Okay, and what are you thanking them for?
Whatever it is that they said.
Okay, you've been in business for what, about 16 years or so?
16 years, yeah.
Okay, and do you have connections that go back to the beginning of your career?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
I have some connections that I made when I first started as a 14-year-old in fashion. Regrettably, a couple are no longer with us, but for the ones that are, I try to maintain as close a relationship with them as possible.
That's amazing.
It's twofold. It's not only because as the years go forth, we change in our jobs and in our careers, and it's always good to have a connection with somebody who knew you from the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a piece of nostalgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And nostalgia is important. Why?
I don't think it's really necessarily important as much as it is. It gives us a warm feeling of knowing that we've had friends for so long.
Okay, that comfort that comes
It's
from
comfort. It's comfort in the growing pains that we have in the business or developing our brand.
that. Okay, and then how do you make these connections last that long?
Okay, that I would say is probably the toughest thing.
Okay.
Because when making a connection last, it can't always be about your product or service that you're trying to sell.
Mm-hmm.
What if they don't want your product or service?
Good point.
What if they don't like what you have to offer? What if they just really thought you were a good person and they want nothing to do with your company?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you happen to be a butcher and they happen to be a vegetarian.
Right.
You know, there are so many factors involved in that is as per why I feel it's difficult to maintain relationships, but when you're doing so, I think it comes down to having a gracious attitude.
Okay.
Being thankful for the relationship that you have with the person, always thanking them, going back to what we had talked about earlier, always thanking them for the impact that they've made, for taking the time to meet with you, and then not overdoing it. not talking to
Okay.
them on a weekly
Mhm.
or every 2 weeks. Of course, it's nice to receive a phone call, say, hey, I was just thinking about you, hope you're doing well, let's meet up sometime.
Mhm.
That sounds great. But when you do actually meet, what do you add to that person's existence, to their business, to their life, to their family or their friends? It's all about really adding value.
Okay, and how would you add value to that relationship?
Again, coming back full circle, research.
Okay.
Understand the person. When you're having conversations with them, when you're meeting to further your conversation after you met them the first time, and you send them the email for the meeting request just to further your conversation, actually pay attention, listen. Don't think about the product that you're trying to sell them. Don't think about the reason why you initially met them. Be interested in the person. Meet them, get to know about their family, their friends, what makes them tick. That way, you will always add value to them.
Right, because you're putting them first, you're paying attention to them, you are genuinely helping them.
Exactly.
Okay, and you've used this process for a number of years. Have you changed anything in your process? Are you doing anything new these days?
I think the only thing new is that I now feel welcome inviting people into my home.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it just adds a more personal touch. So instead of meeting at the coffee shops, instead of meeting at a boardroom, everybody again wants to feel human. So we invite them to the home. We do things like this. Have tea. Sometimes I'll use the example of an organization, a women's organization that helps support women in business. They're launching a new product and they've asked me for my advice on how we can rebrand this organization and this product that they have. I had a 10-hour branding meeting at my home.
Wow.
Over veggie burgers and Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Well, who wants to sit there talking for 10 hours about branding?
Right.
It's always better over veggie burgers and hot bodies.
Okay, that's a very different approach.
It kept us awake.
I don't think I've heard that suggested before.
Yeah, but at that point in time, we went from colleagues to friends.
But isn't there something a little creepy about going to someone's house when you're going for business reasons?
I don't think so. I don't think in today's day and age, there is an excuse. There's an excuse for people not to drive. There's an excuse for people doing things in their home. There's an excuse for all of these things. And you know what it is? We're all sustainable.
Okay.
We're all looking to support sustainable businesses. We're all looking for those who are cutting back on over-utilizing products and services, over-purchasing, and consumerism. So the idea of doing something at home doesn't have to be seen as creepy. It's all in the approach. So I've met you 3 times at a coffee shop. Next time, you know what? Pramod, you have to come over to the house because I make a better cup of tea than Starbucks will ever make.
Okay. So a bit of a relationship has already started.
You always have to.
Okay.
You will never meet somebody in your home from the onset.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to add about making connections last?
I would say, really, understand that you need to listen. You need to listen to people. You need to find out what makes them tick. You need to care about people. At the end of the day, people stick around when you care about them. And I would say as a result, they end up caring about you.
Right.
It never happens the other way. You never allow people to care about you first, and then maybe you'll see if you care about them.
So you start by giving first, and then
Giving first and then receiving. That's exactly it. You show them that you care by understanding their values, their principles, their needs, their wants, things that are important to them. And by you facilitating that for them by saying, let's meet, I have somebody that I want to introduce you to. For the purpose of whatever, building their brand or somebody that can help benefit them in some way. That's where the relationship, I think, is truly developed.
Okay, now if you're game, I wanted to do something a little different that we haven't done with guests before. Have you heard of a person by the name of James Lipton before?
Oh, I love him.
Okay.
I love James Lipton.
Who is he?
He is the host of Inside the Actors Studio.
You do know.
I know James.
Okay, because one of the things he does is he has a number of questions that he asks his guests, and they're standard questions.
You're asking me his famous 10, aren't you?
Well, not
Okay,
all of them.
I'm getting ready
because-
for this.
we won't ask all of them because
Okay.
we might get sued for copyright. You never know.
Just ask them in a different order.
Yes, but we'll ask a few of them. What's your favorite word?
Love.
Okay. What's your least favorite word?
Ugly.
What turns you on?
Intellect.
What turns you off?
Lack of intellect. Truly it is.
Okay, that means we can cut the questions down in half. Okay, what sound or noise do you love?
People laughing.
Okay, and what sound or noise do you hate?
Honestly, it's the exact opposite. People crying.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why he has 10 questions when 5 would do.
Okay.
Another question is your favorite curse word, but this is a G-rated program, so
Okay.
we'll skip over that.
Yep. I'm good with that because I don't have one anyway.
Oh, okay, good. I was afraid
They
you might...
all tie for number one. That's
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought sometimes people might have more than one. In your case, they're all equal. You don't
Yes.
discriminate. Okay, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would honestly love to be an architect.
An architect.
An architect. That was my dream as a child. I was going to be the first architect on Mars. So as a child, I would watch these space programs, and NASA was developing a colony or trying to develop a colony on Mars for the last 30 years. And I remember telling my dad, before he passed away, that if we go to Mars, who's going to build our houses? And he said, well, maybe you can. So I was going to be the first architect in space. But then I realized that it was like a couple $1 million to go to space. So I was like, only the rich people can go there. And then I said, who's going to make all the rich people look good? So I was going to be the first architect, fashion designer in space.
Wow.
And then I realized, wait, if we're there, then I can't go to Sunnybrook Hospital when I need help. So I was going to be the first architect, fashion designer, medical doctor in space. That was my dream as a child.
Okay, so these questions don't always lead to one-word answers.
No.
Now, for the next question, you cannot use actuary as the answer. The question is,
Okay.
what profession would you not like to do?
Oh my goodness. What would I not like to do? I'm game to really try anything. I would just hate to be stuck in a profession that I'm not stimulated by. Something that doesn't involve me continuously using my brain.
Okay, and then the last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive?
I have two answers.
Okay.
The first one is, how the hell did you get here? No, I'm kidding. The kind of ironic, right? No, the real answer is, if God were waiting at the pearly gates and I arrived, my hope would that he would say, or she would say, or it would say, that you did it right.
Okay.
You got here on your own terms. You did it properly.
Well, thank you for those answers.
No, thank you for... Oh, wow. I didn't realize that would break me down this way. But if, again, you know my key to this. If I weren't so over Botox, I would actually be crying.
Well, thank you for being game and answering those questions.
No, thank you.
Now, one final question.
Oh, yeah.
If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
You can send an email. I'm not very high tech, so I have my team that works on that, and they get to everybody right away. So you can send an email to Duke, D-U-K-E, at omni-media, media.ca. That's Duke at omni-media.ca.
Well, thank you very much for taking your time to visit us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?